people don't resist change. People resist losing things that matter to them. In this presentation, I want you to come with me on a journey where we explore the whole idea of losses and how losing a lot of things at the same time can cause an emotional trauma. And I know by experience that such a trauma can also lead to a resistance to change. And then I want to show you a very specific thing you can do to help your staff recover from that emotional trauma and to move forward with a more healthier mindset and heart set. Now let's look at the idea of the trauma. When the lockdown happened, overnight, we lost a whole host of things. Just think about it. We could not go to our colleagues. We could not go to the office. We could not bring our children to school. We were forced possibly to work from home or to not work at all. We were forced to teach our children and become their educators. We were not allowed in the UK to spend more than 1 hour outside of our house in spring. And there were loads of other things that came on top of that. Now, imagine in a household, this was not just one person experiencing this. Your children had completely different losses. Can't go to school, can't see their friends at school, can't go on a playground. And your partner probably had similar things like you, but on top of that, you both suddenly have to find a way at home how you're gonna work and look after your children at the same time. And then we couldn't see our families, our friends. We were completely locked in. Now, I know by experience, and I also know from what I teach people, that each of those losses creates what I call a loss reaction, an emotional response. Each loss, not just all the situation at once, each loss has its own responses. Now, because we become so overwhelmed, what we actually do naturally is we shut our emotions down. Our immune system gets so overwhelmed by all these emotions that we basically just shut down and stop feeling. Denial in itself is not wrong. The denial in itself in that pressurized situation is actually very good because it helps us to focus on the things that really need to be done. That's why we were able so quickly to move whole workforces into a remote work environment. And yet, denial is only something that we can do and should only do for a while. There should come a point at some point where we need to look at the things that we have lost and become conscious of the things that we have lost and really become conscious of the things that really matter to us. Just imagine we are all in this situation where we go through, see our lives like a ruin, where everything that we just did and that mattered, travel plans and all the things that was gone. I was actually planning to go to Belarus, to Georgia, just in that week where lockdown actually happened. So I didn't go. But just look, this was probably how it looked, like a ruin. Now I have a relationship to this ruin. That's why it's here, because I'm from East Germany. I experienced a collective trauma myself before, and that was the fall of the Berlin Wall. I was a child raised like a communist. I believed in communism, and overnight my worldview was a lie. Teacher stands in front of the class and saying, that it would collapse one day was always clear. I had a career plan that meant 1 year at school, then I would go to the army and I would spend the next 25 years in the army. So I had a clear idea where I wanted to go in life and had a clear idea of what to do for the next 30 years. It vanished. And then I find out that my parents had basically created a construct of family life under the pressure and surveillance of the secret police. So I found out that my family did not really believe what I believed they believed. So my whole support network disappeared. I was confused. I just didn't know. I lost complete direction. My life was a ruin. But when I learned some skills to uncover the value, to uncover what really matters to me, that was the place where I could reconcile with the ruin, where I didn't have the feeling I need to rebuild anything, but actually knowing I salvaged everything I could from this ruin and used those things to rebuild something completely different. And this is what we need to realize. We're confused, we're traumatized, we have created coping mechanisms. In my own life, it took years for me to realize that. There were so many situations where I suddenly find myself completely overwhelmed emotionally, and I just didn't know why. I didn't know what was going on with me. I thought like something is wrong. I just don't know what. I had no connection. That's what I did with my trauma. It was completely locked down inside me. And I needed to find a way to access it. I'm feeling more at home in myself now because I reconciled with it. And this is what I want us all to experience. This is what I want us all to consider and to help each other with, that we can move forward. That we can move forward with healthy hearts, with whole hearts, and with courage, that we can change something without losing ourselves in the process. Now, what are signs of trauma? How can you as a leader, as a manager, recognize that people are traumatized? Now, signs of trauma are things like a resistance to return to the office. There's something going on. This is completely overwhelming for those people, and therefore they don't want to come. And it's not just COVID. There's much more going on in the background. But there are also sentences like, I'm okay, I guess. You see, when you hear the voice and people are not really convincing when they say, I'm okay, then we have to be aware and say like, hey, actually, something is going on. There's something in the background that I can't see, but this person tries to cover up. I'm okay, I guess. Or things like, well, I have to get on with it. There's nothing I can do about it. It's a sign of trauma because we're never out of control. We're never at the point where we can't do something. So you as a manager, I want you to become aware of those sentences, because these things make you or give you the opportunity to do something and help them to move forward. You might have people that are completely on edge and you think like, I can't do this. If I do this, this person's just gonna be really weird and edgy. And if people are on edge, they're hiding something. There's something inside them that needs to be addressed. Now, what are things that help? Or let's explore first, what are the things that don't help? And the things that don't help are sentences I've unfortunately heard many, many times during the pandemic. Sentences like, we are all in this together. Hey, if I need help, if I am at the place where I'm really struggling, where I'm not really sure where I'm going, where I'm kind of not sure how to handle this whole thing, if somebody just comes up as an offer of help and says, oh, we're all in this together, what I would perceive is, you push me away. You actually push me into a place of isolation and loneliness. This sentence, no matter how empathetic we think it sounds, is not empathetic and it's not helpful. Another one that we hear, especially around the whole mental health idea, is it's okay not to be okay. That's true, but that sentence is not helpful. Okay? I want to become better. I don't want to not be okay. I want to be okay. So just that somebody comes to me and says like, hey, it's okay not to be okay, doesn't help me. I want to be okay. So please don't use those sentences as suggestions to help the other person cope with the situation. Another one is, everything is going to be all right. Really? Just let's think about the sentence. Everything is going to be all right? No, it's not. That's the problem. The problem why I'm overwhelmed is that not everything is all right. And I'm not sure what this everything is going to be all right is going to look like. So those are sentences. They sound nice, soft, and inviting. But actually, I believe we're pushing people away. So let's explore what we can do instead. To recover from my own trauma, I learned a skill where I could go through 3 phases whenever I feel emotionally overwhelmed. The first phase is I try to make sense of my emotions, and I try to understand my emotional patterns and why I'm responding the way I do. And the second phase, and this is the one that you can do with all your staff at any time, is I ask myself the question, what have I lost? Now, I mentioned already about my story that I had lost as a teenager 3 things. My worldview was lost, I lost my career plan, and I really lost my whole support network around me. And these things are too big. They are too complex. They are not really things that I can attach myself to and do something about. I needed to deconstruct those things. So I learned, for instance, that my career plan, at the time, this was my biggest dream. This was something I really wanted to go into. And I realized many times in my life that I lost opportunities and I lost moving into things because I actually was afraid of losing again a dream that I wanted to create and live into. But with my family, I lost trust. I lost friends. I lost my father and mother in a sense. I lost trust in people. I lost trust in education. And the more I became aware of really specific things, the more I consciously could make decisions about those. So when I started realizing I lost trust about my parents, is I could learn to trust them again. I could learn to rebuild a relationship with them. Or when I realized that I was indoctrinated and I really suddenly realized I don't actually trust education, but I loved learning, I began to go in a different direction and learn to learn a different way, learn to be educated in a different way. And if I was in an environment where there was somebody teaching, I learned just to reflect in a different way. So you can ask your staff, what have you lost? And let them list these things. Let them just write it down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have one of my clients, one of the things we noticed in her losses was, she said like, I can't go out, I can't go for weekends away, I feel like I can't see my friends, I feel like I can't have my friends around. And there were other things connected to this. So it was not necessarily lockdown in itself that caused that. But I shared with her, it's like, hey, the things that you just written down here, the things that you feel and perceive as losses, they're actually the very things that you value. These are the things that really, really matter to you. So I want you to learn to make decisions on the idea of losses and of the things that you value. So I said, like, so do you really have to be 24/7 at home? Or is there space where you can actually create space to go out and see friends? And she's like, oh yeah, I could. So this was just a small thing to take a list of losses and take one thing that really mattered to the person and help this person to make a decision and a plan to move forward in this area. And that's the third phase, that we go through, is making an action plan on the basis of the values of the things that matter to you. And that's the same thing in your company. Don't think people don't want to work. If they're resisting, if they are panicking, go deep inside them and ask them, hey, what are you losing? Don't ask them what they're afraid of. Ask them, what are you losing? What are the things that matter to you? And you might realize and learn that there are things that matter to them that you never knew. But this is where you can deepen a relationship with them, and where you also enable them to bring things into consciousness and then encourage them to make good, thought-through decisions to move forward. Now, in my work, I've created an emotional fitness camp where I take people over a time of 8 weeks, 8 weekly meetings, just 1.5 hours, and I take people on the journey to really discover those things and to learn new behaviors, to really learn about the emotional patterns, about the things where they unconsciously respond in a certain way, and then relearn behaviors where they can learn to respond to those emotions in a different way. So I gave you the one thing, and I want you to take this away. And remember, your staff are not resisting change. They resist losing things that matter to them. So take this away. And if you're interested to run an emotional fitness camp with your leaders and with your staff, where they can learn in more detail the skills that I have learned to recover and reconcile with my own trauma, then just be in touch. And we're gonna find a way how we can establish this in your business, in your teams. And I can guarantee you, people will come closer to each other. People become really supportive and really helpful. And they will be set up for future setbacks and for future trauma and for future catastrophes. And again, remember, people do not resist change. They resist losing things that matter to them.